All right, guys, we're live. Welcome to my Road to UFC live watch party. I am sitting watching the show. It looks like the little pre-fight package is coming up. Never done one of these live. At least I've never hosted one of these myself. Honestly, it's a really big commitment to be on live air for 7 hours. So, what better event to try this out on than Road to UFC finals, which are just at most an hour and a half long? Just 3 fights tonight. Got Cheyenne in the chat. If you guys have any questions, feel free to throw those in the chat. Salzakita, hey, you were on the 138 podcast earlier this week. That's great. Great to have you guys. Hopefully we can now they're showing Shanghai, Singapore. I was confused for a second because they're showing some different cities, but we're back in Vegas. So welcome to the chat. This is going to be a little bit more informal than even the podcast is, which is also a little bit informal. I've got a large bowl of popcorn, which I'll try my hardest not to chew that into the mic. I'm about to crack open a cold one. Got a Sierra Nevada Sunny Little Thing citrus wheat ale. So we'll see how that is. Big fan of that. Tim Jong, yeah. Looks like Nathan got you there. It's on Fight Pass. Probably depends on your country as well. Like if you're in China, it's going to be on Migu. Indonesia on Mola Sport. Not sure where it airs in Japan and Korea, but a lot of places on Fight Pass. So, Chris Jamia, good to have you, my man. Looks like we got Laura and John on the call, who have kind of been our Road to UFC hosts thus far. Honestly, they are like the two best people for the job, if you ask me. But how about those fights we just watched from the UFC event, right? We had a really weird, people were saying the most middleweighty main event you've ever seen. Fouls and sometimes boring, sometimes dramatic, just kind of a clunky event. Honestly, for all that, Nasruddin Imavov looked fantastic, right? Really good. Oh gosh, would have loved to have heard DC's insight into Road to UFC. Thank you for not for just sticking with Laura and John Gooden on that. What a performance by Korean Tiger tonight. What do you think is future onwards? I as much as I am on the love watching Asian prospects, I was I'd heard a lot of good things about Lee Jung-young. Even his fight against Ija, he had a torn ACL and got taken down sometimes, but was able to, squeak by with a split decision there. And I'd heard he's fully healthy. He should be all ready to go for this fight against Blake Builder. And he looked fantastic. Builder looked so overmatched. And just his takedown defense held up. Not only that, but he was able to get the takedown. Turn that off. And his hands, his timing, his range, his timing, when he got the fight to the ground, his ground and pound looked just massive. It was an incredible performance. I was actually just chatting with his manager or one of the guys that manages him just a little bit ago. And he said that Lee Jung-young is disappointed because he really wanted the finish. And I was like, yeah, that's understandable. I mean, don't we all? But Blake Builder just didn't really give him much space, even though his clinch work and attempted takedowns really weren't all that effective. He still just didn't give Lee Jung-young that much space. But when Lee did get space, it felt like the fight could swing dramatically towards his favor at any second. So I think he has nothing to be disappointed in, especially first time fighting in real UFC, even though he did fight on the prelims of that show last year for the finals. But Lee's fight was kind of like Renier's, dominated, couldn't get the finish. I think Lee was a bit reined in. I think he started to be more patient. If you watch Lee on Road FC, he was super wild and swung like crazy. It was really hittable. Yeah. Also think Lee needs to work to stay off the cage. There will be stronger wrestlers who can hold him against the cage, and stronger wrestlers that might be able to get him down as well. That's a good point. That's probably the biggest criticism of the fight. I would say not that he couldn't get the finish, but that he kept on ending up with his back against the cage would be my biggest criticism. But yeah, overall, an interesting night. A couple dude, 4 to win. Appreciate you, my man. No problem. Thanks for swinging by. Overall, interesting fight card. A little bit of everything. Molly McCann's fight was really fun. Azat Moxham versus Charles Johnson. That was a lot of fun. Even though Moxham kind of I don't know if it was a gas tank thing, but it seems like he kind of let Charles Johnson into the fight, or Charles Johnson either that or took time to kind of punch his way into the fight. But amazing performance by Charles Johnson. I mean, Moxham he's a beast. That's a really crazy win for Charles Johnson. But yeah, so we got first up, we got Jinyu Shirye versus Ray Tsuruya, flyweight final. This one's really hard for me to pick. I feel like I've learned a lot about Jinyu Shirye's game, but I still don't really feel like I understand. I feel like Tsuruya, I feel like I have a little bit better grip on his game, but Jinyu Shirye, it just seemed like he's one of those guys that's growing so quickly. But yeah, really slick jab, amazing control, amazing composure, really slick. Oh gosh, look at his back there limping in the boot. He said, you got Cholun behind him. There you go. So yeah, Dean Amasinger, I'm guessing he's in the back helping fighters warm up. The actual Shanghai PI coaches, mic check sometime. Let me just move it closer. Maybe that's a little bit better. So yeah, the UFC Shanghai PI coaches aren't actually allowed to corner. I don't know what the exact rule is, because I feel like I may have seen them in some fights, but in this fight, obviously Dean Amasinger is not there, because that would be a little fishy having a UFC employee cornering a fighter in a UFC fight. So that makes sense. But yeah, so kind of nervous for Haraguchi. If he can't get Rongju down, I don't know how he's going to look on the feet. Yeah, he's one of those guys that right when the fight starts, right when the round starts, he just advances in and goes for the takedown. So we really don't see much of his yeah, I was just looking at your message, 4 to win. Yeah, he really doesn't show much of his striking. I'm sure he has a little bit, but Rongju is, I'm guessing, going to have the advantage there if they stand and bang it out. Shin Haraguchi, he's going to get a couple takedowns at the very least. At the very least, he's going to get Rongju down, but I do think Rongju is going to be able to get up. He's going to be able to stuff some of the takedowns. So yeah, that's where the battle will be. Organizing Q&As with cool people. Oh, totally. Yeah, man, hit me up anytime. Rongju's a good prospect. Didn't take UFC seriously in the past and got cut because of not making weight, but he's back now and still young. Totally, he's like 23, right? Road to UFC finals were very poorly handled this year. I agree. They promoted them hard ever since they announced them officially this last Tuesday. They have promoted them really well. It's like they're trying to make up for it. Okay. It's like they're trying to make up for it, but I agree. I wish people would have known about it sooner. All right. Let's see. I need to hit refresh on my Fight Pass real quick. All right, we good. Yeah. This fight is so hard for me to predict. I think if it's on the feet, Jinyu Shirya is probably gonna like pick him apart, but Ray Tsuruya is really wild, not in like necessarily a bad way, but like he just if he's on the feet, he throws a lot of offense. If he's on the ground, he's always throwing subs, always scrambling. So I think if it's on the ground, Tsuruya should take it, maybe even snatch a sub. But I think on the feet, we're going to see Jinyu Shirya pop his jab over and over and over. So we'll see. I mean, again, jury's still out there for me on Jinyu Shirya. Yeah. Ray's cardio. He did his last fight, he kind of against Mark Climaco, he worked at a kind of unsustainable pace and got a little tired in the later rounds. Mark Climaco hit him with a big head kick. Xiaolong and Lee Chong Ho still going to be rescheduled, but it's both like Xiaolong healing from an injury and also finding the right place for the fight too, since it was a visa thing. So there you have it. Jinyu Shirya throwing a jab. Ray Tsuruya ducking under, pushing him up against the cage. Throwing some shoulder strikes there. Just a good old face smushing there. Those are like really hard shoulder strikes. I mean, not like damaging, but that crunch has okay. I will try to I just like I was like I really want to do this watch party, but I also really want popcorn. So I'll try to keep it light on the popcorn and not just like be smacking in your ears. It's gonna be weird to have a random solitary road to UFC final, a UFC card. That's what they do. Yeah, hopefully they can be cool if they could put it on an Asia card, or maybe if the timing works out to have it on like the Road to UFC opening round for season 3 and just make it like a big main event sort of. Cause I mean, wouldn't be that honestly in effect wouldn't be that much different from this. They've got this on its own separate Fight Pass stream. Sounds good. I told you this would be a little more informal. So Jinyu Shirya gets the separation there. There he is throwing his jab again. Still hasn't gotten his range just yet. Nice. Jinyu Shie's distance and timing is just really good. Bit of a slip from Jinyu Shie, but Ray pursuing. Ooh, Ray gets him down, kind of a scarfold position. Interesting to see if he'll try to go for like a scarfold arm lock from here. And once Ray Tsuruya, he loves the like body triangle position. Like Jinyu Shie is probably going to have him on his back until the end of the round here. He just sticks to him so tightly. And that's why I said, like, Ray Tsuruya, he's not going to be the guy that's just going to like slowly, patiently try to get the choke. He's going to be like throwing punches from whatever position he's in. So it's just like constant offense. Even like, ooh, Jinyu Shie is like starting to like twist himself over, but Ray Tsuruya is like trying to get him in a twister, but I don't know if he totally has all the. Yeah, he does. I thought you usually have to. I'm no expert in twisters, but I thought you usually have to have one leg kind of locked down. Either way, that is super painful. Oh, my neck is hurting so bad just looking at that. Oh my gosh. I made the right move not getting into MMA as like a career. Now Tsuruya is going to pound to the finish. Oh, come on. That was a really early stoppage if you ask me. But anyways, congrats to Ray Tsuruya. I just felt like that was not a. I felt like that could have gone on a little bit longer. Jinyu Shie is trying to buck. He's trying to get out a little bit early. But I also am not a referee. I wasn't right on top of the action. So that's going to be like, what, 4:59? Yeah. Free spine adjustment. I know. I thought that for a second, I thought that he just like called the end of the round a second early because I was like, no way is he stopping the fight. Let's see if we can get a little. I mean, they were hard punches, that's for sure. He just didn't. It was like 3 or 4 seconds of punches. I feel like you just got to give the guy a little bit more time to try to figure out how to work out of it. Also, putting the results into Tapology here. So yeah, you gotta. Let's see. Last season, we had Rinya Nakamura Flyweight, we had Park. Featherweight, we had lightweight, we had Anshul. Featherweight, we had Lee Jong-young. So this is the second Japanese guy to win a Road to UFC contract.
Totally relieved I got the win. This is the final, so I was expecting some possibility of going to decisions, but I'm just happy to get the finish.
You got the finish. Talk to me about the fight. Was that the fight that you were expecting? Did you know that you'd come out here and be able to dominate?
So Ray Tsuruya is 21 years old. So, man, add one more really good young Japanese prospect to the ranks. Kind of surprised. You sure you didn't really say anything to fight it? Yeah, maybe not. You know, there might have been something I didn't see there. Ray needs to work on his striking, but like Taira, he has a long time to improve. Wonder if Ray is going to become the second coming of the Latino killer like Taira. He could, yeah. They're similar in a lot of ways. They have, they're like a lot of Japanese fighters, really good grapplers, really tricky, really crafty. Ray seems a lot more physical than Taira. I don't know which one ultimately will be the better fighter, or like if you can really even compare them, but I definitely see them like bringing Ray along really slowly. Like they're going to give him fighters at the bottom and like kind of the Taira path where he had to fight like 5 or 6 times before getting a ranked opponent. Oh, that's fun. You got Ija or Lee Kai Wen warming up with Vince Morales. That's fun. Ija, who's he got with him? Is that Cho? Oh, that's Cholun as well. Yeah. Thoughts on Song versus Yan? That's going to be really exciting. Could be a really fast-paced fight. Yan, I think Yan's going to probably try to take it, like try to wrestle him, but yeah, I think a lot of people are probably counting out Yan right now just because he has had a little bit of a losing streak. But like, if you think about the fights that he's lost, like he lost the DQ against Aljamain Sterling. He won, or I guess he had that fight against Sean O'Malley, which was really close. A lot of people thought that he won that fight. So I think some people are probably counting out Peter Yan. And that's a mistake. Yan is a really methodical, really fast striker. But Song is like probably has some of the fastest hands in the division. So I don't know. I'm going to do a full breakdown of that fight because I don't know enough to be able to like say who I think would win. But if it's on the feet, it's going to be an extremely, just like a lot of the top bantamweight fights, just a really technical striking fight. Song has the advantage in power, I think. And he's also been like thinking about Peter Yan for a long time. Here we go, promoting the Robert Whittaker versus Costa fight. Although, didn't Marcel say that fight actually is done now? There's kind of some of that weird controversy, but yeah. Early stoppage on that Tsuruya Jinyu fight. Wanted to see both fighters fight more. And yeah, I think that's why I'm a little bit bummed, is just because not necessarily because I was rooting for either guy, but just like I felt like that wasn't meant to be the end of the fight, and it should have. I would have loved to seen that fight go on longer. It felt like there was more in the tank, both from Reitzeruya, but also from Jinyu Shirye. And it was just like 1 second till the end, But what can you do? Again, not a referee, not standing right there. Although, I mean, I said this on my podcast, but guys, I was so close to being in this room at Road to UFC as of like a couple days ago. I told the story on my podcast, but over a month ago, I was supposed to. I was talking to one of the guys, the Shanghai PI, one of the staff there, and he was like, "You're going to be able to make it out." I was like, "Well, would love to, even if just to like watch from the stands." And he was like, "Well, if you can get there, then I can try to get you media credentials." And so we tried to do that, and then I only published my website like 2 weeks ago, MMAecosystem.com. So it's no surprise to me that I didn't get approved. That's like kind of a no-brainer that I wouldn't get approved unless there was someone that was like, approve this guy for UFC credentials. But then just this last Wednesday, I wake up to a message from this guy where he's like, "Hey, are you coming?" And I was like, "Well, no, I wasn't approved. I kind of thought that was the end of it. Never heard anything." And he was like, "Oh, you were supposed to be approved for Road to UFC media credentials." And here I am, like, just going about my day, all of a sudden being like, "Okay, so do I need to like fly to Las Vegas tonight?" And so I was looking at flights. Eventually I settled on driving. I ended up packing. I was like, gosh, I need like a new tripod. I need like a couple new clip-on. Like, I thought I was going to have a month to be able to prepare for this, write some interview questions, do all this stuff. And so I like spent the whole day basically preparing to go to Las Vegas on Thursday to be able to like make the weigh-ins by Friday morning, get to do live streams of that, get to interview the athletes, hopefully get to spend a little bit of time outside of official stuff too. But ultimately Thursday or Wednesday evening, I got the notice that it wasn't going to happen. But all good, because either way, I kind of felt like it was a win-win situation. Hey, appreciate that 4-1. I'll hit you up. Yes, truly taking the road to road to UFC. It was going to be a 16-hour drive from Portland, Oregon to Las Vegas. Was going to leave at 6 a.m., going to get there at 9 p.m., was going to stay at Excalibur, but in some ways kind of glad that it didn't happen. Former Epic world champion. What is Epic for Ija? Is that supposed to be Wars, like WLF Wars? I think that's supposed to be WLF Wars. Epic. That is not what I'm familiar with. Oh no. Oh, dude. Back in like, so WLF was called Epic, EPIC, with some kind of abbreviation. But the last time he was that he fought there, August of 2016, won by triangle choke. And I don't see any kind of like title fight status on there. That's interesting. It would make a little bit more sense if they said WLF champion. But anyways, this fight, let's see. It looks like you got some syndicate guys behind him. You got Wong Le, his manager with Paradigm. Of course, Lee Kai-Wen missing weight. Not sure what to make of that. I didn't hear what the story was behind that. Sometimes there's a more forgivable story behind it than others, but don't really know. I know I love Lee Kai-Wen's tattoos too. Like probably the only Chinese guy with that many tattoos. This is another really hard fight for me to predict. I feel like Ija will, the most likely scenario is that Ija will grapple his way to a decision here. But if he strikes, the thing is that gives me a little bit of caution is that in Ija's last fight, he chose to strike against Kim Sang-won was who he fought in his last fight. He chose to strike with Kim rather than grapple, which is his bread and butter. I don't know if that was a strategy thing where he actually thought that he was better. And his striking was like decent. It was serviceable striking. He was able to, he threw a lot of volume. He was able to get the job done. But if he tries to strike with Lee Kai-Win, if he tries to test that, if he has too much confidence in his striking, he's going to get lit up. He's going to get knocked out because Lee Kai-Win is levels above Ija striking. What a tragedy. Japan has already won. JMA lives another day, unfortunately. This weight miss doesn't matter here besides purse. I guess not. It's a 20% fine. I know in like contender series, yeah, it's like if you miss weight, that can. But Dana's also given UFC contract to guys that win contender series that win that miss weight. Dude, someone said it, but yeah, Justin Bernard's hair is looking fabulous today. I don't put a lot of stock into odds, but Ija slight favorite there. Either way, like this fight is the fight that I like really wish that a guy didn't have to lose because like Lee Kai-Win has had such a long road to pun intended road to the UFC. Like he was stuck in one championship for a long time. They put him up against Fabricio Andrade. He tears his bicep in that fight, has a long recovery. And then Ija like missed the UFC contract by the narrowest of margins last season. So it's not like the last fight where both of these guys are like 21, 22 years old. It's kind of their first big exposure. There you got Forrest Griffin on the right side, Kevin Chong, CEO of head of UFC Asia there as well. I am interested to see if Lee Kai-Win employs a lot of anti-wrestling defense, like if he is ready to throw the knee against Ija when he shoots. Can definitely see that. I guess Cholun, if well, yeah, he's definitely going to be in Rongju's corner because those guys come from the same gym, as does Ija, all those Tibetan guys. So hoping to see DC stick around at least for Haraguchi's fight. I have no idea what this fight. Yeah. Lee Kai-Win throwing some feints. Low kicks from Ija. Dude, Lee Kai-Win has some really stubby arms, that's for sure. Nice left hand there by Ija. Oh, nice uppercut from Ija. I mean, if I'm Ija, all these strikes I'm using to head towards a takedown or a clinch. Like we're not striking to see who's the better man here on the feet. We're striking to get this fight to the ground. Ija throws a left hand. There you go. Okay, first clinch. Ooh. Lee Kai-Wen easily moves out and now throwing some strikes in close range here. This is so interesting. Solid takedown defense by Lee Kai-Wen so far. But Ija, he's going to keep working. He's going to switch up his attempts. A lot of times you can stop the first takedown, but can you stop the third or the fourth if they keep coming? Kai-Wen got double underhooks. Oh, and he throws Ija to the mat. Very interesting, although, and maybe I'm just underestimating, but yeah, looky there. This could be it right here. Oh, he's got it. There it is. See, man, I was just saying that I didn't know if this was the best idea, tripping Lee Kai-Wen to the ground or tripping Ija to the ground. What's the end game there? What's the point there? Ija, you saw how he submitted Wuziate Bieka with that armbar off his back in the first round. Oh man, you gotta. I mean, feel for Lee Kai-Wen, but he's either gonna get right back in there with Road to UFC, or maybe just take a couple fights outside the organization. Could even throw him in Contender Series if you wanted to. He's trained in California at like Alpha Male. But there you have beautiful switch. I'm trying to see at what point the tap came. He did going to Syndicate for a short bit. I wouldn't. Maybe it was a verbal submission. Throw this into Tapology. .303. Dang, 2 back-to-back first-round finishes. This is going to be a short watch party. Very nice, though. I mean, feel bad for Lee Kai-Wen, but you got to be pumped for Ija too. I mean, he's fought 6 times for Road to UFC. His last 6 fights have all been there. So, I mean, yeah, he's earned his keep, that's for sure. My man Peter Wang Chi Jungwon. I don't remember what his last name is. Peter. Translating here, he's head of athlete relations at the UFC PI in Shanghai. So a lot of the choice of which Chinese fighters get invited to the PI is this guy right here. He's scouting, all that good stuff. Very influential guy. Classy guy in Ija. Saying that he forgives Lee Kai-Wen for missing weight. Don't hold it against him. Showing the trip there. I mean, honestly, if I'm Ija, I let this guy trip me to the ground. Honestly, Lee Kai-Wen, even though that was not a very smart move, his takedown defense is pretty good in that fight. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it must have been verbal. Do you think they keep anyone like they did with Kazama? Honestly, like if you're gonna Lee Kai Win, I'm on the fence about because, and honestly, Jinyu Shirie, because like they kept Toshiomi Kazama, but like Lee Kai Win, I feel like he's the most marketable guy in the whole season, or one of the most marketable guys in the whole season that you could like. I mean, he has a very strong brand. He's got a lot of charisma. He's got usually a pretty exciting style, and he's got a lot of elite experience, at least like in elite promotions with Road UFC and now with and with one championship. So I could see them signing Lee Kai Win. He's got Paradigm as his management. So you know they're going to be pushing for that. He actually was it he was at least like really close to signing with the UFC. That it was like January of maybe like 21 or 20 when he fought Fabricio Andrade. It was like a kind of like, if I win this fight, I'm going to go to the UFC. So, you know, he's been close to the UFC for a long time. They made him go through Road to UFC. So I don't know. I could see that Jinyu Shirie, even though I think that he is really good, and if he were to go to Road UFC again, I think he would probably make the finals again. But maybe since he's a little bit younger and a little bit more unknown, they may not sign him, even though like I feel like Jinyu Shirie, if you're just like stacking up skill and overall ability, are probably like maybe better than Toshiyama Kazama and Jekka, but I'm not sure what all the internal politics are behind who gets signed and who doesn't. Yeah, that's true. Missing weight may make that decision for the UFC for sure. Ija wanted to get the takedown. Lee Kai Win the whole time, but couldn't. Didn't matter. Lee took the fight to the ground for him. I know. Yeah. I again, like, why do you know how good this guy is on the ground? You've trained with him before. He's trying to get you to the ground. You're defending the takedowns, and then you take the fight, and then you like trip him to the ground and go into full guard. Like, I think Lee Kai Win's going to be beating himself up for that for sure. Playing it out of like, if I didn't get this guy to the ground, would the fight still have turned out like this? But I mean, if you're making those kind of mistakes, you could argue, do you belong in the UFC if you're making those kind of mistakes? It's a big learning moment. So how about that power slap, yo? I know. Never watched it, to be fair. Yeah, power slap. Dang, we are already in the last fight. Only 3 fights, but got Rongju against Haraguchi. I kind of talked about it a little bit earlier. Got James on here. Good to see you. Good to hear from you, James. This is another fight where I'm like, man, I feel like both of these guys belong in the UFC / back in the UFC. Dude, that freaking cauliflower. That is some of the worst cauliflower ear I've ever seen in my life. So now we have in the UFC, okay, Tibetans in the UFC. We've got, so from Unwall Fight in Sichuan province, Ija, he's a Tibetan guy. You've got Sumu Darji, who is Tibetan. Rongju, if he gets back in the UFC, also an Unwall Fight guy, he's Tibetan. Song Yadong originally is from Unwall Fight, but is not Tibetan. Who else is from Unwall? Arichi Long, no. Shailan, no, he's a China top team guy. Li Jingliang is China top team. I know these guys train other places for the most part now, but they are still kind of like connected to their home gyms. Where's Zhongwei Li is Black Tiger. Still, though, unbelievable fight. I mean, they've got 4 fighters in the UFC. Or, sorry, 3 fighters. If Rong Ju comes back, they'll have 3 or 4. Sorry. One somewhat early stoppage in a fighter making a weird decision for an armbar finish in the first. What's this one? I don't know. Probably like Haraguchi by knockout or something really unexpected. I would love to see. I hope that we get to see some Haraguchi striking. Why didn't they do Road to UFC on Friday instead of today after the event? I don't know. I don't know what the advantage of that would be. It does like help with the time zone having it later. So I think it's just a little bit more convenient. Just staying, you just had a UFC event, just keep everything going essentially. Having the later time zone or having the later time slot helps them with the Asian audience there. Got here late. I know, man. It's like already almost over. 45 minutes over in, and we just got one fight left. Ugh, one elbow and those ears are gushing blood. Don't want to see that. In 2022, they did Road to UFC the day before UFC 275. Yes, that was also, though, that was the opening round, so they had, like 16 fights. Heishui, Sichuan, China. So, yeah, you got Cholun coming in. You're right. He literally cornered all 3, one side of 3 fights this whole night. That's crazy. See who else he's got in his corner. I know who that guy is. And then Patrick and Victor. Okay. Which unsigned Asian talent do you think would have the best chance of breezing through a Road to UFC bracket? A couple Koreans, Kim Tae-kyun, Kim Min-woo. I would be the ones I would say out of Korea. I mean, Japan is a little bit tricky. It's like if we're like talking about more established fighters, I guess those guys are signed to Ryzen. Most of like the better Japanese or like more established Japanese fighters are with Ryzen. Imagine if Japanese Olympic wrestlers went to MMA, like Yui Sasaki would wreck UFC strawweights easily. Oh, I'd love to see that. Why don't do this before the UFC event? I think that's a time zone thing, mostly because they want the Asian audience, want it to air there, rather than like 7 or 8 in the morning. Because if it was before, then it would probably be at like 11 a.m. or 10:30 a.m. local time, which would be a really bad time for Asian folks. But Wrestle Jamie, I'm starting to script a video on who I would cast for Road to UFC Season 3. They are casting that. I've heard from folks that the casting call has gone out. They're recruiting actively. Actually, let me... Weight classes, I mean, I've heard probably what you all have, flyweight through welterweight, and then women's strawweight and flyweight. But age 18 to 30, not coming off a loss, at least 6 or more pro wins, 70% win ratio, 55% finish ratio. That's interesting. has at least one win over solid, respectable competition with a positive record, which is pretty subjective, but that was what the UFC sent out. Really wish someone like Miyu Yamamoto made the MMA switch earlier. Oh, that would have been so fun, right? Weird double shift. These two need more airtime. Senko's doing pretty well and good and is an established guy. Yeah, and they've been covering this tournament from top to bottom already, so they have done so much research on the fighters. That's the advantage of doing a tournament, is it's all the same people. So you really don't have to like you have to do a lot of research at the beginning, which is really tough. But yeah, so there we go. Shin Haraguchi immediately shoots for the takedown. Rongju probably expected that, so defended it really easily. Yeah, Kim Tae-kyun. What's the name of that one young Chinese flyweight? If you're talking about Agulali on a big win streak, Feng Tianhao is the other guy. That's probably who you're talking about. So there we got Shin has Rong up against the cage. Rongju kind of in a tripod position. Nice to see Shin throwing some knees. One thing I'm going to be watching for here is how much he strikes while he's wrestling and has people on the ground. His first two Road to UFC fights, he really didn't strike that much. And I know he got the stoppage over Lima, but it took him a long time to get that going or for that to click in his head. But glad to see he's throwing some knees in the clinch here. Dropping down for a really low double leg, grabbing the ankle of Rong, switching back over to a single. Okay, yeah, Feng Tianhao's the dude. Just on Rongju like glue, but Rong able to get some space. Now let's see if Rong can land some strikes. You can't get too wild or else he's going to snatch a leg or snatch a knee. Ooh. Shin kind of dipped down and Rongju hit him with a knee, but there you go. Now Haraguchi Haraguchi is so good at locking down all of the limbs. There you saw he had Rongju's legs tied up. Then he was just scrambling around trying to grab the wrists. We saw that in the last fight with Shin Haraguchi and Park Jae-hyun. Park was able to get up over and over again, even though Shin landed the takedown. So, this is the second or third time Rongju's already broken off in this fight. Rongju has thrown very little offense. He's doing a lot of measuring. There you go. To be fair, he doesn't have to throw a lot because he throws so hard. You can just land a couple really damaging shots in the round and still take it if Haraguchi's not landing much. But big high energy takedown from Haraguchi gets Rongju in side control. And Haraguchi absolutely, right here, he needs to be throwing those elbows. While he's got Rongju in kind of a pseudo clinch position, there he is, throws an elbow. You need more of that. You can't just wrestle. Rongju starting to shrimp and turn, though. There you go. Talked about on your podcast, do you think prospects like Rongju and Haraguchi could benefit hiring Ghost as a scout, or is that reserved for fighters at the highest level? Well, it depends on what the price tag is, but absolutely. Getting another, the thing is you got to be able to trust the people that you're working with. But I think, if you know people that can vouch for people say, yeah, they've really helped me out a lot. I think that could that could be good. Guess it's if they feel like they need it or not. Seems like these two are not fighting to a game plan. Well, Haraguchi's game plan is plain and simple: get a guy down and smash him or go to the decision. But Rongju is definitely more conservative in this fight than he was his last two fights. I don't know if he's being a little more measured because he doesn't want to give up a takedown or like get too close to Haraguchi, but he's definitely landing the harder shots on the feet, which I think is smart considering Haraguchi is not going to be the kind of guy to like throw lots of, like, you don't have to throw a whole lot of volume to outland Haraguchi. He's not going to be the guy that just throws tons of volume. So even if he gets a couple takedowns, if you land the more damaging strikes, like, I'm interested from you guys, who you thought won that round? Because Rongju definitely landed the heavier, more damaging strikes, but Haraguchi, you saw, got takedown after takedown after takedown. And if this is mostly or just on damage, then, or if damage is the most important thing, then I feel like Rongju should have won that round. Oh, that was an interesting, you saw that replay. Haraguchi dives down for a single leg and then like, he's like grabbing the leg and then like striking with the other hand. That was kind of cool. When I say fighting with game plan, I mean Haraguchi's tactics are not very good, as he only has a few ideas in his takedown entries. I mean, yeah, that's the thing, is like, if you know that your opponent is only gonna throw takedowns, like, that's really all you have to train during camp. You're not going to be able to catch up to Haraguchi's skill level of takedown. Like, with Haraguchi, like, he may try different types of takedowns or be able to chain them together. Rongju would be, oh man, there Haraguchi kind of dips down and then turns it into a spin, shoots again. Rongju, either way, he's really got to make Haraguchi pay for these takedown attempts. Got to make him think twice about it. Either calf kicks, or there he is, the knee. Throw. I was just about to say, throw a big knee when he's going in for the takedown. I don't know how well that landed, but it seemed like it did. Interested to see if, like, how media scored that first round. Yeah, not really seeing a whole lot of scores here, but good to see. I feel like that's a little bit of development from Haraguchi throwing some punches in kind of a transitional space here. He's not just waiting until he's got like a mount or like a side control when he's really settled into a position to start throwing some strikes. Yeah, it's eighth and knee. Yeah, I mean, like, being an all-star wrestler might be able to get you through the road to UFC tournament, maybe even a UFC contract, but you're not going to be able to get too far up the UFC ladder. Like, think about Rinya Nakamura. Nakamura, another amazing wrestler, but he's had the striking and also like the offensive. There's another knee from Rongju. That's nice. Rongju's starting to time Haraguchi really well. We're we're just over halfway in this fight. Be interesting to see if Rongju is he's definitely, like, again, he's landing the heavier strikes in this fight. You see Haraguchi's nose is starting to bleed a little bit. Yeah. Rongju starting to give Haraguchi some things to consider when he's shooting for these takedowns. And you see, like, when Haraguchi throws his hands, he's lunging. A lot of times his distance isn't quite there yet. He's also got what looks like a reach advantage or disadvantage to overcome as well. Rongju able to really just kind of peck and paw from the outside, and Haraguchi really has to lunge in there. Yep, you got it. Yeah, that's true. Rongju is here's another takedown shot. Stuffed by Rongju. Oh, pushes forward with a nice right hand. Yeah, if this fight keeps going like this, like, Rongju's absolutely going to win a decision. He could get the stoppage too. I mean, if he blasts another one of those knees, there he throws a head kick, kind of blocked by Haraguchi, but Haraguchi has to be more diverse than this if he wants to be a UFC fighter. Nice body shot by Rongju. Another knee. Nice. Yeah, Rongju's lighting this guy up. Don't get me wrong. I really like Shin Haraguchi. He's a good guy. We've chatted for years. I want the best for him too. Would love to see him in the UFC someday. See if they show this knee. Oh, oh Lord. What a knee. Wow. Haraguchi just seems overwhelmed by these strikes from Rongju. Really clear round for Rongju. Gotta be tired of fighting guys who won't die. Well, he did knock out, he finished Brandon Jenkins. That was like 7 seconds left of the round. And then he knocked out Hong Sung Chan. Haraguchi, though, you know he's going to be a tough guy. Those ears tell you everything you need to know about how long he's going to be able to stay in the fight. And it seems like, I'm trying to get a gauge of these guys' cardio. It seems like Rongju's cardio has held up pretty well. I mean, he starts the round with like a running jump knee. Haraguchi, I mean, his nose may be a little busted up, which is why he's got his mouth open, but it seems like his cardio's held up as well. So yeah, see what I mean about Haraguchi's lack of tactics to set up strategy of takedowns. He's only hand fighting and shooting from a long distance. Yeah, I mean, like, eventually you gotta learn to like throw meaningful strikes to disguise your takedowns. So we got a glove malfunction or something. I don't know what's going on. Herb Dean doesn't know what's going on. Is this the long fight that we needed? I mean, it's definitely, this is playing out. I mean, not to toot my own horn, but this is definitely playing out very much how I thought it could go. We're seeing Rongju's power and his volume up against Haraguchi's really good wrestling, but like you all have pointed out, very kind of one-note wrestling. Nice straight right knee. Oh, beautiful. Haraguchi might be starting to wheels might be starting to fall off a little bit for Haraguchi. I feel like he's got it in him to hang in for the rest of this fight, but everything that Rongju is throwing seems like it's affecting him more and more each time. Yeah, exactly. Box to set up takedowns. It seems like Herb Dean is like inching a little bit closer when Rongju's throwing these combinations, almost like he could. Okay, that's why. What's he doing here? Oh, mouthpiece. That's why. Hey, we got to fight. What are you doing? Haraguchi taking a knee here. Dude, you can't. We got to fight. We got to fight. You can't. This is not a timeout. Oh, Rongju blasts him. I think Herb Dean is seeing that Haraguchi may want out of this fight. I don't think Haraguchi does want out of this fight, but he wants to take every second that he can. I think we could see this fight finished sooner rather than later, even though Haraguchi, like, he's on autopilot right now, but Rongju is just, he's going nowhere. He's picking up steam. He's sensing this fight is his to lose. Whew. Ooh. Haraguchi leaking Rongju's. Oh, there it is. Rongju gets the rear naked choke in round 3. Yeah, really solid performance. I mean, submitting an amazing wrestler like Haraguchi for all of his pitfalls and holes in his game, really tough guy, strong competitor. But man, yeah, Rongju able to defend the takedowns, most of the takedowns, get back up to his feet when he did get taken down. Crazy optics here. Haraguchi exhausted, leaking, kind of a standing, kneeling, rear naked choke position. Kind of glad that we didn't have to see the fight go to the final bell for Haraguchi's sake, because it's like Haraguchi's not going to just like give up, but he was taking a beating. It was time to be done. I feel like Haraguchi has gassed himself taking so many shots in open space that will gas anyone except Merab. I know it really makes you appreciate guys like that. Rongju just playing with them totally. I think that proves that wrestling without proper striking tactics will not get you far, as Jimmy was saying. Exactly. All right, there you have it. Road to UFC finals are complete. We got Laura with Rongju again. Gosh, second UFC run, and he's 23 years old. That is insane. Yeah, Rongju is a fun character. I like that guy. I feel like Haraguchi is the opposite of many UFC fighters, where he's actually has the takedowns, but then doesn't know what to do exactly. Man, Rongju, he's a physical specimen. I mean, you realize how just big of a guy he is. Herb, so I mean, that's been the criticism of him, being a little bit indecisive as he's gotten older.
Haraguchi took so much damage and continued to push forward and push forward. Were you surprised by how tough he was tonight?
그래서 저 그냥 like he's the you know yeah.
Be interesting to see how they matchmake for Rongju going forward here.
I know he's a very, very tough fighter. If I don't poke him away, he will continue to forward. And then
Oof.
no like a bonus for the
These replays are painful to watch.
How good does it feel to call yourself a UFC lightweight yet again and represent China in the UFC?
Like in this fight, he was about to wave the fight off, and then Rongju just let him tee off. Yeah, sometimes it's tough when a guy is like continually moving, improving his position, and then you have the whole issue with the first fight where it was like feeling like it was stopped early. I don't know if I would have stepped in to stop it earlier. I think if I would have been a ref, I would have been really, even if it wasn't like a really decisive moment, I think I would have been close to stepping in. For Shin Haraguchi, you know, I would love Haraguchi, by the way, James, he's from Brave Gym in Japan. There's a couple other guys that train there. I forget who they are. Well, his brother, Akira Haraguchi, who's also a pretty good fighter. There, you got Rongju, Dean Amasinger. Dean looking good, as always. Something to think about, Rinyu Nakamura is taller than Shin Haraguchi. Shin was a little bit wider. I think Haraguchi could make 145 or 135. Yeah, that's what we were talking about on the show. Maybe that was you that asked the question, that Haraguchi maybe could cut a little bit more weight. I don't know. I can't be the one to say that, but yeah, sorry. Just seeing if what they're talking about on the screen here. But yeah, so for Haraguchi, personally, what I would love to see from him next, go back to the regional scene, fight for Shudo, fight for Deep, fight even for UAE Warriors, which is kind of like the international LFA. I would personally like to see him. I mean, it is very clear that he really, really needs to like invest a lot in his striking. And before we just hop back into Road to UFC in 3 months, I would love to see him just, and he's 25 years old. So you got time. Take a year to work on the regional scene, really work on your striking, take fights where you feel like you can showcase your striking and not just wrestle right away. And then maybe shoot for something like Road to UFC next year if that's what you want to do. But yeah, personally, I wouldn't. I mean, he could probably do well, especially in the first couple rounds. Haraguchi could, just because his wrestling is that good. But yeah, I wouldn't think that they'll sign Haraguchi personally off a loss. Hey, thanks for the win. Really appreciate that. Appreciate you tuning in. Sazakita, also Shin. Yeah, exactly. Send him to ATT or send him to like Alpha Male, bunch of wrestlers, USA MMA trainings, better than Japan MMA training. Well, there you have it. I know Dean Amasinger, isn't he working at the He is, yeah. So Dean does not do, I don't know what all the specifics are. I actually have it on my agenda to do an interview with Dean in the next couple months. And I would love to hash out some of these things. Okay, so there's some news for you right there. Xiaolong versus Lee Chong-ho expected to take place in May of 2024 in just 3 months. So with Road to UFC opening round for season 3 taking place, I think there's a good chance that they do it at the same event. I think that they just set it as the main event, the last fight of the opening round. That's my prediction. So here they are, kind of hyping up this fight. James talking about alpha male. Yeah, I know not everyone has I know you don't have you don't love alpha male, but it is done really well for Song Yadong, and has at least gotten like Yan Xiaonan. I'm not saying it's like the end all be all, but it's like been a good. It's got her to the championship level. You at least have to say that. And just because there's been a lot of Chinese fighters that have trained there, they have a lot of experience training Chinese fighters that are like a fight ready. I don't know if there's been a lot of Japanese fighters go to fight ready, but that seems like it's been a good gym. They've got a connection with Asian fighters. And sorry, I said they have experience alpha male training Chinese fighters. Haraguchi, obviously not Chinese, but yeah. Song can't cut the ring well. Yeah, and that's going to be a problem against Peter Yan, that's for sure. So looks like they're closing the broadcast down. If you guys have any more questions, feel free to shoot them in the chat. The stream went just over an hour and 15 minutes for 3 fights. So pretty solid stuff. Honestly, if folks watch the UFC event, but then tuned out for this, hey, and looky there, some more breaking news. The opening round will take place at the Shanghai PI for season 3. So May, Shanghai, probably going to have Xiaolong versus Li Chongho. Makes a lot of sense. When did they announce the contract winner? Well, if you win the fight, you win the contract. It's not like Contender Series. It's like Ultimate Fighter. You win the finals, you're in. And how much do they get? Let's see. The road to UFC fights are a little bit better. The contracts are pretty. I mean, I know you can debate if it's what they should get paid or not, but it is better. The contract that they get going into road to UFC, if they win, is a lot better than the Contender Series fights. So what I heard, and this could be different, but in the first season, I think it was like $9.5K to show and win for the first 2 rounds, which Contender Series, last I heard, the winners got UFC contracts that are 10 and 10, 10 to show, 10 to win. And then the winners of Road to UFC, I want to say the contracts are a lot better. They're like something, and don't quote me on this. Maybe I'm like remembering this wrong, but I thought it was something like 25K to show, 25K to win for your starting UFC contract, which is pretty good. You've definitely proven yourself more than I would even say someone in Contender Series. So how do they pick road to UFC fighters? They have applications. Fighters can send them in. Coaches can. The matchmakers will send out an email to a lot of prominent gyms saying, hey, we're looking for people for road to UFC. They have to meet these qualifications. And if they meet those, if they like you, if they feel like, I mean, they would love to get a good mix of different countries. So, and yeah, if they feel like you could be competitive, then they will. And there's like 32 fighters plus the non-tournament fights. So there's a lot of folks that'll get in. There's definitely people that have been really overmatched in the opening rounds. And some of that I think was probably because they were like not the first choice to get into the tournament. So, I think that is one thing you have to remember is like, you may see an Indian fighter that you feel like maybe shouldn't have got in. It's like, well, he wasn't real. Like there's a couple fighters before that was kind of their first choice. So, and second and third choice. So I think that's how they do it. They're both scouting, and I mean, obviously with the Shanghai PI, all the scouting is already built in house. They literally just have to go to Dean or to Peter at the Shanghai PI and just say, "Who you got? Like, who's your top people?" And they're in. They also have, I don't know if they have this for different countries too, but for India, so they've got a guy that works for Sony Sports, which is the UFC's broadcast partner in India, a guy named Somesh Kamra. And Somesh will meet up with the UFC matchmakers and give them his best options. And and it's not always guaranteed either. Sometimes the UFC matchmakers will listen, sometimes they won't. Sometimes they'll say, actually, we like this guy, not that guy. I think, I don't know who is, I know there are guys that Somesh really had highly touted to the matchmakers last year as like his top guys, and I don't know if they chose them. So that's interesting. I don't know how it works with Indonesia, if they're going through Graham Boylan for that, or Mark Fiore. Graham and Mark run the Cage Warriors Academy, who are bringing in Indonesian fighters to train in San Diego. I don't know if they're going to them and saying, who you got? And then otherwise probably just going off of applications. They also have, I don't know if I know they have like people like, they're talking to Shu Hirata. Shu Hirata is probably like one of the most prominent managers in Japanese MMA, manages like tons and tons of the Japanese fighters. So, they're talking to him too. So can you do Road to UFC multiple times, like Contender Series? Probably. I mean, Choi Sung-gook, probably you won't see him on this next season, I would think. He's doing a title fight March 9th in Korea. So he may be taking a year off, which I think is smart. Kind of like UFC bootlicker Joe Pyfer. Yeah, I mean, I guess we'll see Pyfer tested next week against Hermanson, right? What's the application? There was, I haven't seen it yet this year, but I did see them. I think it was like last year and the year before, they had a post that they would float around with like an email address that fighters could email if they were interested, and then they'd probably send you an application. What's on the application? So I read this out a little bit earlier. I did see this earlier. You have to be 18 to 30 years old, not coming off a loss, at least 6 or more pro wins, 70% or more win ratio, 55% or more finish ratio, have at least 1 win over solid, respectable competition with a positive record. So that is the application. Lee Kai-Win, I know. Interesting what will be next for him. I almost feel bad suggesting him to go through Road to UFC again just because he's already done so much, but that may be it, or maybe just one more fight. I don't know. Could fraud happen in those applications like that dude who changed his Tapology record multiple times and had fixed fights? So fraud can happen. It does feel like there's been a crackdown on it recently. Like when, so I work for Tapology. When what's his name? That Ukrainian guy got signed to the UFC. I think there was maybe some tips, and there was an email chain floating around between us at Tapology and the guys at SureDog, where we were like really doing some investigation. Like, okay, let's go through each of these guys' fights because we've heard a tip or two that they may not be legit. So we went through his whole record and came up with what we came up with, which was much worse than what had happened at first. Basically, fighters can like email a helpline at Tapology if they're like, hey, you're missing some of my fights. When that happens, we we investigate it, and especially if it comes from certain regions, promotions that we haven't heard of, it's a very thorough investigation of like, okay, watch this fight, but watch to see, is the opponent legit? Does the commission look legit? I mean, yeah, a lot of fights take place in people's backyards, parking lots, things like that. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it's fraud, but just like take a look at some of the stuff on the outside, make sure like if we have another picture of his opponent, make sure it matches up with what this guy actually looks like. Are they fighting to the fullest of their abilities? Everything like that. So that's kind of how we do the fraud check. Is there any chance we're able to see Central Asian fighters from Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Uzbek fighters in the Road to UFC tournament? You know, I would be surprised if we did. I think that those guys have a very different set of skills. And honestly, I think if they were in the tournament, I mean, it's like if we just signed Beksa Almahan, and I feel like if he was in that tournament, he would roll through it. A lot of these Kazakh guys, I think, that are at the top of your prospect list, they don't need another like tune-up fight. I think they could just go right in. Kyrgyz and Uzbek maybe a step behind that in some ways. But yeah, I mean, you know, those guys are going to be really wrestling heavy, which is things that you want to test before someone gets into the UFC for sure. But I don't know. I feel like this needs to be a space where fighters that are more underrepresented can fight to get in. And like, yeah, sure. Like Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan, I would say are pretty underrepresented in the UFC. But I think that I think there's plenty of fighters from the countries that they have right now, and that they can draw the line there. And there are so many like solid promotions in Central Asia that they can get experience against really high level opponents without having to travel too far. Whereas like sometimes like Chinese fighters, and it's, you know, it's changing, it's getting better, but Chinese fighters, you may have a really good record within China, but you don't always get really high level competition, even as it's getting better. And Japan, you can get high level competition, but like you're not as likely to get, like there aren't very many fighters like Rong Ju in Japan. You have a lot of really good grapplers in Japan, some good strikers too. Obviously Japanese kickboxing is getting bigger and bigger, but I feel like keeping Road to UFC within those lines, East and Southeast Asia, even like Mongolia, I don't know if they're going to put Naim Jargol, like what they're going to do with him, but yeah. Dope stuff. Hitting the pillow. Peace. Santiago, Chile. Very cool. Catch you later. Thanks a lot, City Life. Appreciate you. From Isha, appreciate you joining. Thanks, guys. Would we ever see Wang Xiao? I think you mean Wang Xiaoxiang, JCK champ. I think so. I think he would be a perfect candidate for Road to UFC, honestly. I think he's a guy that is right there on the bubble, and I think that's the kind of guy you want. I don't think you want someone that you feel confident that they should be in the UFC, like a Kim Tai-kyun. I think that you want people that have impressed on the regional scene, but you're not quite sure if they're ready to hang. So Wang Xiaoxiang, I think, would be perfect for Road to UFC. JCK, yeah, exceptional promotion. Remember, Rio said that the UFC doesn't really care for Asian fighters. UFC just pretends to. Yeah, I don't know what. I don't know what the story was. I don't know if they were just. I mean, it seemed like they were trying to figure out what was going on with the bantamweight final, but even so, I don't feel like that's an excuse to not even like talk about it, post it on the website. It seems like what I can tell from my Twitter feed that a lot of people tuned in for it, which is cool. A lot of love for Road to UFC. I know, man. Road to UFC. I mean, not just because I love the Asian fighters, but it seems like the fights usually deliver pretty well too. Would they ever match up a Road to UFC winner against a Contender Series fighter winner, or do they try to build up both separately? Fighter winner? No, yeah. I mean, I think that's totally what they would do. They've done that already too, right? They've won. Maybe, or I don't know. I guess there haven't been a whole lot of Road to UFC winners to get in. Well, didn't Blake Builder got in through Contender Series, and he fought Lee Jung-young today. I think it would be appropriate to throw someone like Lee Kai-Win into Contender Series. They tried the Chinese fighters in Contender Series a couple years ago, and that didn't really work out that well. They it seemed like they needed a little bit more experience, but Lee Kai-Win, he's already been in the US, already fought in the Apex. It's not going to be as much of like a cultural like travel shock for him to fight in Contender Series. So I feel like he would be the perfect guy to put in Contender Series. Shin Haraguchi, I'd say, needs a little bit more time to work on his striking. Jinyu Shirya, I could see them either signing him or Road to UFC again, honestly. All right, guys, that's it for me. Going to do some like writing articles, wrapping up, trying to catch up. But I appreciate you guys hopping in. This was fun. I will consider doing this for Road to UFC in the future. Sometimes I have a lot of other things to do as well, and it's kind of hard to multitask. But for this, it was fun. Fun hanging with you all, and hopefully, if you're in the US, get some good rest, especially if you're on the East Coast, 1 a.m. on the East Coast. Otherwise, guys, I will see you on the podcast this upcoming week, Thursday, 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern, and have a good night.